Breaking news covering the Charter-Cox cable merger. I remember the days when they had a sham bankruptcy at Charter, and Paul Allen, co-founder of Microsoft with Bill Gates, had bought a lot of Charter, and he was able to get out of the deal as far as his liabilities. Of course, he died with about $20 billion, and he was still the 44th richest person. So I'm no Nostradamus, but I think that when there's wrongs that need to be righted, I was willing to risk my position there in UBS, and there's things like that it doesn't seem right, and you may see my action against causes that you wonder about my credibility and my credentials, but I think that you can see that I'm willing to take action.
And Cox Communications announcing a merger. The proposed transaction valuing Cox at $34.5 billion, and Charter will absorb more than $12 billion in Cox's outstanding debt. Cox is going to own 23% of the combined entity. It's going to keep the Cox name post-closing, and Charter's Spectrum will become the consumer-facing brand. Charter's CEO, Chris Winfrey, will become CEO of the combined company, and Cox's CEO, Alex Taylor, will be chairman of the board. So a big deal, matters to us in so many ways. And we were taking a look. I don't even know where Comcast shares were, because for a long time there had been speculation.
Absolutely.
Would Comcast eventually want to try to merge with a Charter?
Especially under this administration.
Especially under this administration.
Might be more open to, that would be basically a national scale merger, which wasn't previously allowed. By the way, shares of Charter are now at almost 7% premium. It's almost like people are waking up and saying, wait a minute, they were unchanged when this was first rumored in Crossing. We're seeing a much bigger reaction now. There's Comcast, still fractionally higher this morning by about 1/3 of 1%.
Look, part of the issue that I don't think gets talked about enough is the wireless situation, which is really
competition.
And Starlink. And not just Starlink, but by the way, Amazon's going to be having Kuiper soon, which is going to be its own satellite service, and then there's going to be competition among satellite providers. This is why the share prices have
been languishing. Even Comcast, it says we're broadband company, that's fine, but to your point, even the fixed Wi-Fi, there's a lot going on here.
Well, look, when you owned the railroad tracks, and there were no other railroad tracks, it's a great business.
Yes.
But once all of a sudden you have other railroad tracks, it becomes a lot more complicated.
And just look at the news again this morning. Was it Starlink coming to United flights or something like that? I mean, every time there's an outage, whether it was that power outage in Spain or similar situations, you can see the market share gains that Starlink is starting to have. So it may not be fully ready for prime time, but rural America, for opportunities there. So yes, these combinations make more and more sense. It's just that this wasn't the particular one that was necessarily foreseen.
Well, Starlink, of course, was created by Elon Musk. And you can see that as an internet service, that it's replacing, I guess, in a rural market, the possibility of the broadband. And we see that those changes are not being funded any longer as far as broadband in a rural market. And that's probably that connection that's created that situation. But the 619 million, as it says there, was through the broadband.
Spending about 7 years in Little Rock from 2005 to 2012. I worked through UBS Financial, and that was 2005 to about 2009, and in 2009 to 12 with MetLife Financial. I had actually done quite well. I mean, I have letters and other things to indicate that I'd continued to grow rapidly, and of course 2008 entered the picture for a younger person in financial services, but I had branched out and done quite a few other things because of my cable TV background, and I'd been called upon by the investment banking people, and I'd made some trips out to Denver and other places. I was invited by R.A. Burkhoff to an investment banking meeting, and at that time I got to attend an event where the Maroon 5 performed. To sit in on some investment banking meetings, so it was a little more in depth than just.
Financial services, but R.U. Burkhoff became, I think because of some of the things he did with the charter and how he was able to maneuver through the laws that had come into play with the banking in 2007 and 2008 was a benefit to charter, even though with the funds that Allen had available, he could have wrote it out, but chose not to. And of course, he died with $20 billion. And
Okay, the name R.A. Burkhoff might sound familiar. Remember this?
I am suing Microsoft company founder Paul Allen for securities fraud. Herb Blair, September 6, 2019, 1529Z. This story is available exclusively to Business Insider subscribers. Become an insider and start reading now. Have an account? Charter Communications shareholder Herb Blair is suing Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen for securities fraud. Here, he explains why. Paul Allen, who started Microsoft with Bill Gates, left Microsoft a few years ago and began making a lot of investments. One of those was Charter Communications. The problems I have, along with other advisors and stockholders, surfaced in 2006 when an analyst for UBS, R.A. Burkhoff, started giving glowing reports on how the $2.50 stock could reach $10 in a short period of time. The stock made a steep run to around $4.50. In mid-2007, the problem was the analyst was working on becoming an investment banker. The Paul Allen account would give him a position with UBS where he could earn in the millions with bonuses. In May 2007, he was promoted to the position of Vice Chairman Media Investment Banking at UBS. Note timing. Shortly afterwards, without Burkhoff as an analyst, the stock began to plummet. Although his replacement, George Lamberton, still had a buy on Charter until mid-January 2009, he had a low media profile, unlike Burkhoff. When Charter decided to declare bankruptcy, Burkhoff helped negotiate the deal for the creditors, and as a result canceled out the stockholders. His greed caused him to go from stockholders' best friend to their worst enemy.
Coming here, but I did have an apartment here during that period of time, and reality was that I passed the test, all the tests. He had to pass them first time to stay with UBS, and I did, and that included
That was a 7.
and other tests like the insurance and everything else that I need to pass, 66. So I had to do that, and I did that within the first year, and the expectation was that Sandy and Christy would move down to Little Rock.
Well, the move down here, and that happened in February 2024. As you can see, I'm still in the rehab. I get a little time out, and I did make it back over to our nearby condo in the villas of Chenal. And so it's getting to be a little more comfortable. But the clip I wanted to show, and I showed you, was about Charter. And at that point, I kind of, based on the analysts had recommended it as a high-risk stock. And the value at that time, or price at that time, was about 1% of what it is today. Is about $4.50, and it's a $450 stock now. But they did go through this prearranged or sham bankruptcy. I think it was due to all the bank issues in 2007, 2008. So just because of that recent announcement, I wanted to kind of update you on that I've been there, done that, but a lot of. Here's the unedited version of the article.
Paul
that
Allen
appeared
for
in,
securities fraud
Business
by Herb
Insider.
Blair, June 9, 2000, and 901529Z. This story is available exclusively to Business Insider subscribers. Become an insider and start reading now. Have an account? Charter Communications shareholder Herb Blair is suing Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen for securities fraud. Here he explains why. Paul Allen, who started Microsoft with Bill Gates, left Microsoft a few years ago and began making a lot of investments. One of those was Charter Communications. Many thought he paid too much for local cable systems that he bought around 1999 and thereafter. However, the local cable systems he bought were around $4,000 a subscriber. That amount was comparable to what Cox paid for the TCA systems in Arkansas, including Harrison and Rogers. Also comparable to what Comcast, Time Warner, and Mediacom paid. They all have made their purchases successful. Paul Allen made several mistakes in the management of the local cable systems and started growing debt at a high rate. Mistakes included his choice of managers, capital expenditures, CapEx, marketing, and debt management. He attempted to run the business as an absentee owner. When local cable systems were first purchased, the average revenue per user was $33. Now it runs around $108, more than 3 times the revenue 10 years ago. Internet and telephone services, along with additional channels, should have made the systems much more valuable. However, recent value in bankruptcy caused by debt is approximately $2,000 per subscriber. How can revenue go up over 3 times and value go down 50%? Although Allen took the company public in 1999, he has operated the company as though it was private. The company IPO'd in mid-$20 and eventually went to single digits. Another example of another company that operated similarly was Adelphia and Regis family, now in prison. The problems I have, along with other advisors and stockholders, surfaced in 2006 when an analyst for UBS, Aryeh Bourkoff, started giving glowing reports on how the $2.50 stock could reach $10 in a short period of time. The stock made a steep run to around $4.50 in mid-2007. The problem was the analyst was working on becoming an investment banker. The Paul Allen account would give him a position with UBS where he could earn in the millions with bonuses. In May 2007, he was promoted to the position of Vice Chairman Media Investment Banking at UBS. Note timing. Shortly afterwards, without Bourkoff as an analyst, the stock began to plummet. Although his replacement, George Lamberton, still had a buy on Charter until mid-January 2009, he had a low media profile, unlike Bourkoff. When Charter decided to declare bankruptcy, Bourkoff helped negotiate the deal for the creditors, and as a result canceled out the stockholders. His greed caused him to go from stockholders' best friend to their worst enemy. An example would be like the top-rated real estate agent selling property for a very wealthy person and then leaking the rumor in collusion with the rich person that there was going to be a major commercial development that would make the property 4 times the selling price. Afterwards, the real estate agent goes to work for the wealthy person, getting paid many times what his real estate job paid, and the person who bought the property then finds out that it is not worth 4 times what he had paid, but in actuality it is worthless. In both situations you're dealing with a stacked deck. Everyone who invests realizes there are winners and losers. They just don't want to hear they had no chance. The other catch-22 is that they have stated in several financial conferences they had more than enough money to weather the financial crisis until fall 2010, only to take a voluntary bankruptcy. They either didn't and stated they did, or they did and wanted to take advantage of the timing AIG, GM, etc. smokescreen and take bankruptcy at a time when they can get rid of debt and stockholders and still retain ownership, similar to another bankruptcy Allen took on a sports coliseum way of business. They have a poison pill and Knoll tax credit, $1 billion from Obama, and they are protected with severe penalties and bonuses. There have been many opportunities to sell systems in high-dollar markets, LA, Dallas, etc., but refused, stating they were buyers, making it sound as though they had more than enough resources to handle any crisis. Media, billionaires, finance, more, big tech, Microsoft, economy. Read next. Business Insider tells the innovative stories you want to know. Business Insider.